Sureka, you can start admitting them if you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll do it.
Okay, guys, it's bang 10 o'clock and we're going to start as usual, bang on time. It's all about weather, and I think probably one of the most underestimated or under kind of played part of sailing. And I think it's very important that all of us understand what the short term, medium term, and long term implications of weather are and how to prepare for it, both in terms of, your entire rig setup and your clothing and so many other things. So as usual, I hand over to Tom. Welcome, Tom. Thanks very much for being with us once again. And stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here again as well. I hope you are all safe and healthy. As you know, we have extension, so a couple of more classes, and let's keep it rolling. Today, we're going to focus on weather, but not a particular pattern like breeze or thermal wind or any specific venue. I thought about how important it is for you to understand what we actually operate with every day. So I tried to make a presentation so that you will learn and you will understand to move through the forecasts, which you can acquire in the web and the internet, and you will be more aware what actually are you looking at. And then while sailing or before regatta or during racing, you will be more aware how to make a good use of that information. It's not easy, it's not a light topic, but I hope we will get through it nicely. I can assure you that I realized after a long period of time that it's important. It has a big impact on the awareness and how you deal with forecast information gathered from many sources. Okay, let's start. Go to first slide, please. Second. So normally when we open a browser and we use a supplier by WindGuru, Windy, Predict Wind, I mean supplier. You will understand why. So this is a major picture which we can see. Normally it's an overview of what we can look at when we actually try to find our designated place and the forecast to look what's going to happen. And the map view usually varies due to the forecast supplier. So whenever you change to Windfinder from WindGuru to Windfinder or Windy, you will see that main window is changing, and then you will after using plenty, you will learn to use each of them if you are not aware already. The picture is not, I can see that it's not very, I hope you see it clearly. I have to get a little bit closer now. I don't know why. Anyway, so at that major overview, what we can establish is layer panel, which you have on the left-hand side, right? You can see forecast graphs, wind map, gust map, and so on. And normally you can find it in every single supplier page. Coordinates of the location, you are not using it, but still they are there. Observed factors value. So whenever you are switching on one of the layers, gust map or cape map or rain map, so you will have a particular color for less value of that factor and for more value of that factor. Usually light blue color, which you can see at the moment, it's blue, sorry, it's dark blue, but blue indicates less. So less wind, less pressure, and darker orange and red, which you can see also here, orange red, means stronger. So it's more. It's not always about the wind, right? Because sometimes you're going to check different factors. So it's more typically more darker colors means darker. I mean, red, orange means more. Value color legend, which you can find below that screen. I should actually put an arrow. But if you look below, you have a narrow line showing 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 50. So that's the legend. So by that, you know which color means particular number. So you know at the moment, you know that the blue means 5 knots, when the orange means 18 to 20, right? So that's the legend. Wind direction arrows. So that's lines or arrows, if they are shown the different way in different suppliers. As you can see here, we don't have particular arrows, we have lines. So they are curving how the wind bends, they're curving and they are showing the wind direction. Date and time of presented forecast. It's obvious, right? Because when we are looking at the forecast, we like to know when will the shift happen, which day are we looking at? So it's one of the main factors. Weather model. And now I'm quite sure I'm going to surprise you a little bit, because I will guess you had no idea that PWG, PWE, ECMF, GFS, those are actually models which we're going to discuss in the next slides. And remind tip, looking at that picture, because you can see it very nicely here and very clearly. High pressure centers. So if you look at the pressure and if you look at the wind, it's almost the same. Why? I hope you will find the similarity while looking at the pictures, because in the high pressure centers, the wind spins clockwise, and with low pressure centers, the wind moves around the center anti-clockwise. And that's how it is. So on the northern hemisphere. Please go to the next slide. Reading the map. So a little bit more details. I've chosen particularly pressure layer. So now we are looking at the same picture which we had on the previous, but previously was wind and it was more like overview. And when now we have particular layer, which is pressure, and added on it the wind arrows, right? You can see that the wind is actually also there, but we are looking at the pressure map. So pressure lines which have been drawn, the line, you can see lines on the India country, the continent, and on the ocean, the lines, they are isobars. They are called isobars. More density, so tighter the isobars are, whenever you look at it, normally tighter the isobars, stronger the wind flow. So when you have less space between the isobars, it means that the wind will be stronger. But you have to take one note, that look at the sea actually now look at the sea, and we can establish that between in the north, that when the arrow is pointing, right? Arrow is pointing, you can see that there are two isobars quite narrow, and the wind is, well, 15 knots over there. But there in India, particularly above the country, you have also narrow isobars, but pressure varies with height, right? So when you are looking at the isobars on the water surface, you can rely on the rule that when they are tighter, it means more wind. But the isobars on land may sometimes trick you a little bit, because if there is a big jump in height, like mountains or something there, which changes the height, so that may cause the isobars to get tighter, not necessarily mean that the wind will be stronger. So we are more discussing the isobars on the water surface, sea, lakes, water, okay? Observing the pressure center movement allows us to predict how the weather will change in the closest future. For example, we have beautiful weather, it's sunny, the pressure is 1015, and is very stable, light winds and so on. But you can see that soon low pressure center will approach, because it's moving from west to east, and it will hit the coast. That will mean more rain, that will mean more windy conditions, that will mean varying directions and so on. So it's good to see where are the centers of the pressure. Directly inside the air mass, so when you look at the center of the pressure, do you know which actually we are looking at? If you remember previous picture, then you should, and also now the arrows indicating the movement of the wind, the spiral, which is clockwise, which, if you recall what we said, clockwise means high pressure center. So the arrow, which is pointing from the line directly inside the air mass center, is pointing to the center of high pressure mass area. And as you can see inside that center, so inside the small circle, and then the wind is spinning around it, inside there's no wind, completely no wind. Wind usually curves along the isobar. So when you have isobars, you can very nicely see it in the picture that the wind direction moves along the isobar, right? So if you look a little bit to the top of the picture, the wind is going from western directions, and then the isobar actually hit down. It starts to move along the Indian coast, and the same happened with the wind. So instead of keeping, the isobar goes like this, and the wind is going a little bit is bending with the isobar. So that's normally what happens. Less density between isobars, lighter the wind, and bigger the direction variations. So on the right-hand side, on the eastern part of the far on the Indian Ocean, you can see that the wind is actually, there is no pattern. Then that's the piece, the part where you can also see those more darker color patches. So if you look at it, the wind is going from different directions, and it doesn't know what to do. And as you can see also, there are no isobar lines. There's no isobar completely. It's normally happening when also in high pressure systems, when there is no density between isobars and the wind, there's no particular center of mass. It's just a very big, wide area of similar pressure, and then the wind is very tricky, and it's very light, and it has no particular pattern. And now we're going to a little bit more, I hope, entertaining, because it's probably going to be new for you. So the arrow is pointing at PWG, and that means forecast model. forecast model. Each model is representing a different way of acquiring weather data and their figurative presentation, which means whenever you skip from PWG to PWE, ECMWF, and GFS, you will have a different picture. You will have a different wind, a little bit. They might be similar, but not the same. Never the same. They will always vary a little bit. We'll discuss that in later slides. The forecast accuracy square dimension. That's probably, have you ever noticed the numbers? Have you ever seen the numbers like 59, 13, 27, and have you wondered what does those numbers mean? I can tell you the truth that in the very beginning, when I started to think about that topic, I thought that it's the height of the wind, the layer, the atmosphere. Later on, I realized that it's completely wrong, because the number actually is showing us the accuracy. And accuracy, as you can see in the very below the square, which I draw it for you, it's related to that. Accuracy is the square. So imagine that you have 50 kilometers on 50 kilometers on 50 kilometers square area, whenever, Mumbai, Chennai, Bhopal, right? And in one corner of that square, you have 25 knots, and in the other corner is 0 knots, no wind. Still, the forecast, because it's 50 on 50 on 50, it will take the average. Boom. It will sum up, and it will do. I mean, it's not so easy like just to divide, but it will take average. So your forecast will be showing 15 knots or 12 and a half, exactly 12 and a half, which is not accurate, right? Because if you are there in that corner when you have 25 knots, it's completely not accurate, because you encounter very strong winds, but the forecast is saying only 12 and a half. So it's wrong. And the same goes if you are in the corner of that square where it's 0, right? So the forecast is saying it should be 12, but it's no wind. So it's wrong. That's the easiest way to explain to you how it works. So that number is responsible for the square accuracy. So if you have number like 9, it means it's much more accurate than the 50, because it gathers information from the square, which is 9 kilometer for 9 kilometer for 9 kilometer, which is much smaller, right? So it might be very, very more accurate than the 50. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to that more deeper inside that model. What is that model, right? I'm quite sure also you will be surprised by the names. Look on the left side of the picture and you see Arom 2.5, Gilam 7.5, and Icon 13. Have you ever seen any of those? If you have, okay, fine. But I've actually haven't seen them in India, in Mumbai particular, because they are not. That's another topic, but I will explain it later. So the names are different, right? So how do we know which to trust? I hope you will learn and we'll all understand how we can operate in those. So varying suppliers like WindGuru, Predict Wind, Windy, Windfinder, and many others offer different forecast models. So when you switch from Predict Wind to WindGuru, you will see that those models, like now Arom, Gilam, Icon, they are not present in Predict Wind. Or if you will try, I think you normally use Windy supplier, not model, supplier. So Windy uses ECMWF mostly, right? So it's also a model. Each model refers to its individual source of weather observation data covered area and is mostly related to the calculating center where the mathematical process is being conducted. Oh my goodness, I know, it's long and it sounds very difficult, but it's more simple than it seems. So it means that the name is related to countries representing the model, sort of, and the data that is represented by the models, right? So example, Rome is particularly French, and Rome is particularly for its very precise weather, because you can see it's 2.5, so it has the square kilometer 2.5, which is indicating quite accurate weather. But you can find that Rome only in France, coast of the France, and a little bit above and on the sides. So Spain, as you can see, Palma de Mallorca, not all the Spain, but Palma is covered by that model. But Mumbai, not. Any Asia, no. China, no. It's just particularly because it's a French model and they are based and focused on their surroundings. So it covers only a small piece of land. So it's good to know, right? It's good to understand why we can see it here and we can see it on other places. The more accurate model is, the time gap between presented factors and period of conjecture may decrease. Again, it's a little bit complicated. Best resolution models offer 1 square kilometer precision. So again, I'm sorry, it sounds a little bit more like, my goodness, what we are looking at, but again, it's not difficult to understand. So by that sentence, I mean more accuracy in the model. You will have 1 hour gap between data. So as you can see, I think it's a good example. Look at icon 1.3 and look at Sunday, and you can actually observe that you have 3-hour difference between wind parameters. And so you have 8 o'clock and then you have 11. And then from 11, you have a skip, you have a gap to 2 o'clock. So for us sailors, it's completely irrelevant. It's not efficient, right? Because you have racing between 12 and 3, let's assume 12 and 3, and you have no idea what's actually going to happen between 12 and 1 and 2 and 3. You only know that the wind will go 20 degrees to the right-hand side in 3 hours. But when? You have no idea. So for us sailors, it's very, it's no use. That kind of forecast, there is no use in it. It's an overall picture. Like if you are looking for your resting day and you want to know if it's going to be warm and if you can go for surfing or whatever you want to do, then it's fine. But if you're actually looking for racing, it's not accurate enough. And next thing you can also observe in that picture is that Arom, it only covers till Monday 4th till 8 o'clock, while Girlam 7.5, it's longer and it covers Monday till 10 o'clock p.m. So more hours. And then icon 13, which is less accurate, offers more. Still more. So that also refers to the sentence I just read, that more accurate the model is, it shows shorter period. So with Arom 2.5, you won't be able to see the weather in next week. You will only be able to see the weather for next day or 2, sometimes maximum 3. But normally, the most accurate weather forecast, they show you for only next day because they are accurate. They want to stay very, very accurate. They want to tell you the truth. They want to tell you the best wind shift, wind direction, speed, and so on possible. So they are gathering information all the time. And then at the end of the day, they are giving you a prediction for next day, not for a couple of days, because it will change. each model may work more efficiently, higher accuracy in a particular part of the world. So that's very important to understand. That's that in Mumbai, for example, one model will work while while the other one won't completely.
अभी सर ने पता नहीं मैन साइन तो करवा दिया फेंका क्या मालूम मैंने बोला था कल भिजवा देना
Anand,
देना बोला क्या
Anand, shut down. Hello, hello. Okay. So in some part of the world, one model will be very accurate, but the same model which is accurate in Mumbai maybe is not going to be very accurate in France, for example, right? So just for you to understand that. Some which are available are almost useless and not worth paying attention to. That may occur in microclimate areas, local thermal winds, and sometimes even sea breeze. Again, I need to explain, especially when you have that square accuracy high, like 27, for example. So imagine that you have a land breeze in Mumbai, again, in Mumbai. So the breeze actually enters, let's assume, it enters 2 kilometers inside the land, and then the wind stops because inland there is nothing. There's zero wind completely. The wind is only along the coast, right? Now, and when you have 27 kilometers square, it will not show you that breeze. It will not tell you the exact force, the exact direction, and so on. Okay. At varying regatta venues, some of the models might not be available at all. We discussed that. So in particular parts of the world, you will not find some of the models, and at different, you will actually not find yours. At the moment you are using, in Mumbai, you're using ECMWF, but maybe you won't find it in China or New Zealand. It's good to know which models are typical for big range and less accurate predictions, overview, which we discussed, and offshore sailing, and which covers small areas with highest possible accuracy, significant influence in inshore racing. So for us, so which model is the best? Because sometimes you have plenty, and you actually, especially in the beginning, if you don't understand, you will look at every model and you will be like dazzled, like, oh my goodness, what's happening? This one is saying we're gonna have 5, and this one is saying we're gonna have 15. So the easiest way is to know which one is just an overview and which one you can actually look at and be looking for more reliable data source. Normally, the number indicates. So normally for us, it's everything below, let's say 13, 1.3. So every accuracy which is below 1.3, it might be already good. But everything that goes above, like 27, 50, it means no. It means no good. No good. You won't have precise weather information for your racing day. Next slide, please. Example of weather models, that will be very short because it's quite, I'm showing you 4, so GFS, AROM, ECMWF, and WLF. And you can see that actually, if you are interested, you can type them in the web and you can learn more about the models. So you can learn how they are processing data, how they are actually showing you those arrows on the map, what they are taking into account to show you the picture. And you will see that every model is a little bit different, like we discussed, different part of the world, different association maybe, like ECMWF is actually association of European countries. So it's not one country, it's like a big institution, okay? It's more detailed, and I don't want to be extending it because we don't have time. So if you're interested, you can always type particular model in the web, and you can look for information which you want, which you can how you know. Okay, next slide, please. how do we know? Will the forecast be accurate today? So we see those, it's a little bit, because we already discussed that you can actually, you should look at the models which are accurate and less than 13. That's a tip, that's a big tip. So accuracy less than 1.3, it's fine, you can look at them. But all those four now, it's an example, all those four on the left, PWG, PWE, sorry, all three, PWG, PWE, and ECMWF, they are 8 kilometers, both PWG, PWE, and ECMWF, it's 9. So 3 forecasts, which are actually similar, 9 accuracy square. Which one is accurate? If you look at our like 3 o'clock, you can see a big difference, right? PWG is showing 6 knots, while ECMWF is showing 11. So which one is accurate? How to know? Let's go through it. So we never know. We never know for sure that our weather data will become real when we are on the racing course. Surely the best way to help your forecast accuracy is to arrive early in the venue spot. So not on the last day before regatta, but a week before regatta at least. To observe, note the wind pattern and compare it then with different weather models. So I hope you understand what does it mean. So you're looking at the weather, you're looking at those 3 models, PWG, PWE, ECMWF. You go on the water and you actually feel it on your own, right? You can feel it. Today it was 11 knots on the water. So you know that ECMWF was the one accurate, the best accuracy at least. You go next day and next day and next day. And after that, that's exactly what we did in Abu Dhabi. That's why I asked all the sailors to get as much intel as possible, because I was writing down everyday pattern and I was comparing it to models to know which model is the most accurate. So then when we go to Abu Dhabi for qualifications, we don't have to look at 5 models. We look at 1, because we know that for 2 weeks of our survey, right, of our trainings and so on, that one was the most accurate. So it's a very good intel. It's a like lesson done. It's you learn. That's a new for us sailors, very important, because then you know that this is actually 80% accurate and you can use it for your racing. After a couple of discuss, whenever few models show similar prognosis, as you can see now, they are not similar, but they are not. 2 of them, please pay attention. 2 of them look at the direction of the wind. Direction, not the wind speed. Direction. So PWG and ECMWF, they are a little bit like almost not similar, but familiar, right? So you can actually look at those 2 during the day and find out which was the better. But if you have 4, sometimes it happens that if you look at those 3, 4, how many you have accurate, right? And you see that every single model shows is going to be windy, not any, it's probably mean it's going to be windy, right? So then it's easy. It's much easier, because if they show similar direction, so if they show that today we're going to have the northern wind from 0 degrees and it will go to the right, and if all 3, all 4, or even 2 models show the same, it means there's a higher chance that it will actually happen on the water. For racing, strategy, and tactic purposes, always use forecasts which offer 1 hour gap between presented data. Always, we discussed that. So you never look at the forecast which has 8, 11, you always look 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever the forecast is showing you, it has to be showing you in 1 hour gap between data. In some parts of the world, we can find weather models which base on 1 kilometer. I was using them also in Abu Dhabi because they are present there. So we were using 1 kilometer precision forecast, but there is a but it does not mean necessarily that they will be the best. Because as we discussed, at some parts of the world, maybe ECMWF9 is gonna be better than that 1 accuracy kilometer forecast. You have to see it. You have to make notes of everyday observations and find out for yourself which model is actually the best for your particular venue. Okay, next slide, please. That's cool as well. I hope you will like it. So we've seen 4 models. It's those 2 pictures now. Pay attention, please, because those 2 pictures are exactly related to the previous slide, to the previous picture. So now we've established 4 models, and we know that the wind should be between 6 and 10 knots, because that was what the forecast was showing. 5 to 9. They were showing 5 to 9, most of them. And now you can go to real-time observation stations. You were not aware that even Mumbai has one. Not exactly in Mumbai, a little bit north from, but it's there. One real-time observation station. So it's showing you the wind and direction exactly at the time. So now what I can do is I can look out of the window and I can see, maybe I can judge what the direction is. And I can see that maybe it's between 8 and 12 knots, but I'm never sure, right? Because I'm not there on the water and I'm not there outside because we are locked. But with that kind of real-time observation stations, you can actually see exactly what's going on in that particular spot, which helps you a lot to compare models to what's happening at the moment. And if you look at, so the top picture shows you that we have 3 arrows, and those arrows are related to the position of the stations. So I clicked on a 12 knots arrow, and I picked, so now we go to the bottom picture and I can see exactly what was going on during 6 o'clock to 1 o'clock, right? So I know exactly what happened with the wind because that station is real. It's not an assumption. It's not something in the future. It's happening now. So while I checked at 2 o'clock, I was able to see what happened till 1. And then look at nice, what we can actually get from it is that if you take forecast and you compare it with the real-time observation, you can also judge if your forecast was accurate. And look at the wind direction, please. Sorry, a wind speed. We can see that wind between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock was around 7.5 knots. Oh, 7 knots, let's say, which is quite accurate. It's almost the same as our models were showing, right? Almost, not the same, but almost. You can see, we don't have time, but you can see also a big difference in direction change between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, right? At 10 o'clock, the wind direction was around 120 direction, and then suddenly, so 120 like this, and suddenly it changed to westerly. So it went boom, 270. So it went a lot to the right-hand side. It's an information for you, but you can also, again, you can also check it, compare it to the model. And if you see that model was actually showing that shift, it means the model was accurate. And then it's for you, it's like a tick. That model is accurate. You can use it. Okay, next slide. So we have all that. We established which model is good. We know that in that area we are racing, is it Mumbai, is it Delhi, is it Hyderabad, that model is the best, okay? And then we go on the water, what to do with it, what to do with the forecast, how to actually use it properly. So you have to have a device which will help you too. And on the left, you see those devices. It's either a tactic compass or it's a normal compass on the right bottom. And of course, wind meter. It's mostly for coaches because you have to measure the strength of the wind to be accurate. And then when we know the forecast for today, we can easily confirm it on the water. It's obvious, right? You go on the water and you see if it's the same as the forecast said. But use that while you are going to the racing area, use that time to identify the compass wind direction and strength. Because if you just see it, if you just look at the water and you think you know, it's always a doubt. I would like to know exactly what's happening, right? To be very accurate again, because we sailors need to be accurate. We shouldn't be relying on, I think, I thought, maybe. We should stick to, I know, it's this, that's the fact, okay? Then we're gonna get better in results. So, by knowing the exact wind direction and its force, you may confront that with the weather forecast and use it in racing strategy. Example. The forecast indicates the forecast. So forecast, what the model indicates that the wind will shift at 12 o'clock from 3:20 to 3:50. So it means that there will be a big shift to the right-hand side. And you are there on the racing course. It's 11:55. You are almost ready to make a start to your first race. And you see that the wind is blowing from, you can see with your compass, you can see that the wind is blowing from 315. Great, wonderful. The forecast is accurate. So the model until now is accurate. So you have a strong suggestion that right-hand side on the course should be favorable on your first upwind. Is that not a piece of useful information? So I mean, please try to visualize it. When you are going on the water and you are preparing for the race, how do you know which side to pick? You just what? You just look on the water and you know? That's one of the things you should do, of course. But more information you have, your decision will be better, right? If you know that the forecast is showing wind change to the right, and then on the water, you confirm that it's actually that direction which forecast is showing, and it might go to the right. It's very important information for your strategy, tactical point of view, right? It will help you to make that good decision, especially when you look at the water and you actually don't know, like, oi, left, right. You don't, it's difficult. So then, instead of making a gamble, making a lottery and being lucky, you get that very nice tip. Forecast is saying to the right. Okay, let's go to the right. It's much better to have that information than don't have it at all. Before starting sequence, always check the mark bearing, which is exactly the same as wind direction, which was measured by the committee. They displayed at the stern. So when you have a race committee vessel, it always on the board, they are writing 270 or whatever. It means that the wind direction is from 270 and the top mark is at 270 bearing. Be sure to note down, and now those three are related. Those three are related and they're very, very, very useful for you. Very useful. Be sure to note down in mind the starboard and port tack, compass bearing. Compass bearing. That piece of information shall help you with tactics. and now. Very big tip, very important, very necessary tip for your tactics in racing. If you compare your recent bearing, so what compass course you are racing now, sailing, and you compare it with the bearing on the mark, you exactly know if you are going in a steady wind, steady shift, is it a lift, or is it a header? That's a discussion for how to use a compass, but I hope you, at least you know it. If you don't, your coaches can always explain to you. You should be using compasses in the very beginning of your sailing career because it's very useful, it's very helpful, and it's getting you to the pro level closer. So less I thought, I think, might, and more I know, it's a fact, and so on, okay? So how do you know if it's a lift or it's a header or if it's a steady? Bearing on the mark is 0 degrees. So the top mark is in the direction of north, 0. And on the starboard tack, you are at the moment sailing 300. What does it mean? It means that between the line to the mark, start, and the line to the mark, your course makes a 60-degree angle. 60 degree, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a big angle. So then if you ask, look, if you ask the question, the first question, which we talked about in tactics, first question was, am I sailing at the tack which is closing me to the mark? So if you have compass bearing to the mark, compass tack bearing, and you have that angle, you can answer that question. So you know the answer for a question, am I at the good tack? Is it closing me to the mark? If it's 60 degrees, it's not closing you to the mark. You are having a header. If it's 40 degrees, if the angle is smaller, then it means you are having a very nice shift and you should actually stay in it. So look at how many information we can actually confirm. So more we know, more we are aware during racing, it's less about lucky, about gambling, and it's more about being actually aware, very precise, and to make that good decisions. So good decisions are not based on thoughts. They are based on facts and reaction to facts. More intel you gather, weather intel, right? The forecast which we discussed and so on, it helps you to make that good decision. Okay, next slide, please. Oh my goodness. weather, but current is, I would not say it's a weather, but it's a very important factor. You have to always combine weather forecast with current. It's a long topic. I will just, because I don't have time, I will just make it simple enough. I will go to the last note. When you compare the tide information, high water, low water, the time of high water, low water, with the sea bottom, so if you know the shape of the bottom, if you know how deep the sea is where you're saying, or the lake where you're saying, no, the lake don't have currents, sorry, my bad. So the bottom of the lake, how deep is it? You might be able to figure out the current pattern on your own. And by those arrows here, that's Mumbai Bay. And I took some time to find that map. And then I took information which I already gathered during our trainings here in Mumbai. And actually with that map, look what happened. I was able, I'm not sure if it's 100 accurate, but at least it's a picture of how the current acts. Why is it so? Why the left was sometimes better? Blah, blah, blah. It's very good information. And when you compare it to the weather, then you have like very good picture. You have a lot of information of the strategical approach to the race. You can make good decisions, accurate decisions, and you will be more confident, right? Because you will go on the water and you will know, okay, current is today from that direction, so left-hand side is better, and the forecast is saying the forecast is saying that the wind will turn to the left. Perfect. Then the left-hand side is better. And you know it. It's a fact. It should, like 85%, 90%. It's a good decision, right? It's much better to make that kind of calls, that kind of decisions, than to be assuming maybe left, maybe right. Okay. I would discuss that in the next 15 minutes, but we don't have time. So let's keep it that way. Let's keep it simple as it is. So before racing day, you should know the current, and you should find map which show you the depth, or find a map which show you exactly the current, because current helps you to make decisions. Next slide, please. Looking in the future, it's about how you can prepare before going to an event. So how can we know that, excuse me, in March in Palma de Mallorca, sorry, let's talk about Abu Dhabi because it's here. So how do we know what kind of weather we can approach in March in Abu Dhabi? No, if you don't look for it, for that intel, for that information, you will not know. So you won't be able to prepare professionally. I mean, professionally prepare for that event. So how can we help that? By analyzing such data. By such data, I mean monthly weather reports. Monthly weather reports. By analyzing them, we can create a picture of weather conditions that we may approach during an upcoming event. So if you look for the data, which is quite common in the internet, you can find patterns, of course not the shifts and so on, but more or less the average patterns that happened during previous years in that particular spot. So when organizing an event, that's a very useful information, but you can also use it as a sailor. How? You can consider that information in your training plan, right? Example, you are heading to qualification regatta, which you know should offer light wind conditions. So you wish to take part in international exposure before that major event to improve your tactical skills and check your speed, right? So Abu Dhabi is in March, and before Abu Dhabi, you want to go and race with people. And you have, for example, in January, you have events in China. In February, you have 2 events. And if you know that in Abu Dhabi we will have light winds, then from those 3 events, you don't have to do all 3. You will pick this one and this one, because they will be giving you similar conditions to which you will approach in Abu Dhabi, right? So it's, again, a little bit more pro. It's not about, oh, let's go. It's more I know I want to go and train in light conditions, so those 2 events will allow me to. Better. If the regatta venue is taking place annually in well-known spot, like most of the World Cups, Miami, Palma, Melbourne, so those are places like every year regatta happens. So we can acquire information by looking at previous sailed events. So not only by monthly reports, but we also can go through the previous events, look what the weather was, and hopefully count that it will be similar when we will go there. Next slide, please. And that's okay, I'll go by the weather at the venue prediction. Read and learn. I know it's not easy. I know. I'm fully aware that it's not easy to take that book and to read it and to actually understand it and so on and so on. You don't want to. You want to play phones, you want to play games, you want to have some time with your friends, you want to go for whatever you do. But if you think about sailing, if you really want to improve, if you really care for your time, because think about that. You spend so much time training. I don't know how much I did, but I know you are at the moment doing a lot, right? You want to be better. So reading is also a part of that improvement, because by reading, you will know many, many more information. You will be more experienced. Your wisdom, your knowledge will improve, will increase, and that will only help you in reaching your goals. So this is a beautiful example from a book regarding, look at the two pictures, Palma 1, Palma 2. And you have an example in the book. I didn't have to look for that information, like what is the weather in Palma. It's actually in the book. The book is called Wind Strategy. How the title is quite accurate, I mean, accurate to what we can see. And Palma 2 picture is showing us the exact pattern which happens in Palma in breezy conditions. My goodness. So imagine that you are going to Palma de Mallorca for Princesa Sofia Trophy in March, and you have never been there before. You don't know what the weather will be like. You don't know what to expect, but you've read that book, or you've looked for that book, or you looked for that article, whatever. And you actually see the picture number 2. Beautiful. Because you know that you have at least information here, which is quite accurate, that whenever the breeze will build, there will be stronger wind in the shore. Isn't that a useful tip? Isn't that a very important information for you as a sailor to acquire? So we can either go, I have no idea what's going to happen, or we can go to Palma de Mallorca, breezy conditions, left-hand side. Much better, right? Okay, next slide, please. It's the we are almost finishing. In advanced preparation. So when we have all that information, data, weather forecasting, real-time observations, and monthly reports, monthly average reports with wind directions and wind force. How can we prepare for our event? How can we use it? This is how. Assuming we have gathered intel now, we have gathered intel and now possess a picture of our future regatta venue. So we've read articles, books, and we know a lot about the venue. We can work in advance. How? Adjust our body weight to maximize the chance of high-speed performance. Lighter regatta, if you know, is going to be light. If you are counting, it's going to be light, and you've read articles and month reports which showing that in March it will be light. So you can actually go down with your weight, easy as it is, but you have to know that it's going to be light. Because if you're going to be lighter, your boat will go faster in light wind conditions. Pick spots with similar wind and wave pattern for water training. So whenever you are training, you can also decide the place where you're training, particularly similar to the venue you're going to. Focus on the day when the weather resembles that of the future event. What does that mean? It means we are sailing in Mumbai and we have a week forecast which is saying, for example, 3 days of light wind and 4 days of very strong, heavy condition and so on. And we're going to China, Shenzhen, when it's very light. So as pro sailors, as a coach, I would suggest to train in those first 3, maybe even 2 sessions per day, because they are having similar conditions as our important event. And then maybe here in that very, very strong condition, go for 1 session, because we always want to train in heavy conditions as well, but not to push here, right? Useful information. Build extra trim sets in similar wind conditions. So the same, by using those 3 days of lighter wind condition, right, we can build better speed. Pick a preferable set of sails and the mast, test them more. The same refers to the similar wind condition. And now by how we can also prepare technically, right? So please go back to, don't change the slide, but go back in your mind, which we just discussed about Palma. Palma, and it's written here, Princesa Sofia Trophy, Palma de Mallorca. In usual wind pattern, in March, April offers a breeze. If that happens and your starting area is close to the shore, pin position is very much favorable. We know that because we read the book, which showed us that the left-hand side is going to be more breezy. There will be more wind. So preparing to that event, we actually may consider training, start exercises, and pin position. Because you exactly know that in Palma, in that kind of condition, in that kind of pattern, you'll have to start from the pin. And especially if you don't know how to do it, but you know the information, you have that information, you can prepare. And the other scenario is the same regatta. If the breeze builds up nicely up to 12, 14 knots, the wind will move to the right after 4 p.m. So the wind will go to the right with the sun, and the race committee position is very good to fight for then. Actually, are you asking question, how do we know that, right? I'm giving you a tip for, in that sentence, you have a tip, which is saying that if you are racing in Palma de Mallorca and the wind is breezy, you have breezy conditions and it's 14 knots. So after 4 o'clock, the wind will go to the right. It's a massive information, right? Isn't it? It's like, if you think about it, it's a couple of years of experience, but you can have it like this with your coach's experience, but also with your own experience and how much you look for it, look for that data. But here, particularly here, knowing that information, we can prepare to fight at the starting line when we are training, particularly at the pin and at the race committee. So while we are training, we can work that those two patterns, pin and committee, we will be strong. We will feel that whatever happens, we can start there, it's good, and so on and so on. And then regatta approaches, you go for an event and you feel confident. You know, because we've done that. We've done that hundreds of times. So it's gonna be fine. How a big positive impact it has on your mind and on your awareness and confidence, right? You feel good then. It's not a surprise. You are just prepared, which we want. Okay, next slide. For the finish, for the final slide, I've given you a couple of suggestions with forecasts, suppliers, not models, but suppliers, which you can find in internet. It's Predict Wind, Wind Guru, Wind Finder, Windy. Wind is probably the one you're using the most. Weather Online, XC Weather UK. Sorry, I was reading Tide Planner, Tide App. It's for currents, and Navionics Boating for charts. Remember the button? That's exactly for it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And questions, please.
Thanks, Tom. There are a couple of questions, and some of them you've already answered. But what if you predict heavy winds and load up your rig in heavy wind sails and set the rig up accordingly for heavy wind, and then the wind drops dramatically, or the other way around? So how does one react on the water? You don't have the right sails and your rig is wrongly set up. So,
well, so the question is exactly on the water.
Yeah,
like,
you can class. You could probably talk about the 49er or anything, and maybe even the Optimist. But
let's actually look. Laser and 49er, they're one design. So you don't have to think about the sails too much. I mean, it's not like you can have a very full and very, very flat. So that's gone. It's good for you. One design classes offer you less doubts in sails, which is fine.
about shroud tension on the 49er? Do you
I would, so if that happens,
ask Drake?
first of all, if you have a good forecast, you are prepared. Come on. If you go step by step with what we did, you won't be very surprised. But if that happens, let's assume that it happens in the race, you always have to still believe in what you have and make it as powerful as it is or as depowered as you can get it. So Cunningham, kicker, all and alcohol, all the regulations you can use during race. But except for that, there's nothing else you can. So I found myself in that position a couple of times, and the crucial part was your head, because you can make two decisions. You can go two ways. You are having, let's assume it's light and it's getting strong, or it doesn't matter, but let's assume it's light and it's getting strong. So the wind picked up, so you can go one. Oh my goodness, it's strong wind, my set is not good, I'm gonna be very slow. Or you can go two, I will push it, I will do it. Everybody else has the same, right? They have the same trouble, they have the same problem. So it's more about how I push, how I squeeze. I need to get to the end of that race. Use what you can, kicker, Cunningham, and then mentally prepare for pain, for much more hard work, but finish that race. So your reward will be like after finish, you will change the setup so it's good again. But in that race, mental set is very important. So you don't give up. Whatever happens, you always push.
Sure. Can you discuss short-term weather predictions? Like, for example, if when you're looking up from the start line to the windward mark and you see clouds coming in from the right, you see dark clouds, you see lighter clouds. Can you just dwell on that for a few moments?
Oh, that's a very big topic, and that contains clouds, and that's why I didn't focus on that today, because we have breeze. We can talk about convergence patterns as well, and we can talk about clouds, but it's actually very wide, because different type of clouds offer different type of wind actions. Not all the clouds offer the same wind. For example, some of the clouds suck the wind in, but some of the clouds actually drop it. And you need to know which cloud you are approaching. But if, for example, you have the forecast saying that shift will happen to the right-hand side, and you see clouds coming in, that's a very good information for you. Another, yes, that probably forecast will be accurate. So you can make your strategy with that cloud coming, that you will go to the right because probably there will be a shift and stronger wind. Normally, if you see any particular big darker cloud approaching, you should be heading towards it, not against it.
Thanks. Can you dwell a bit on the difference a sailor needs to approach currents versus tides? And when you have a mix of both, what do you really do?
Well, you don't have a mix of both.
Yeah.
Current is related to the tide. So if you have a tide, then tide creates current. So actually what we can work on is the current. So tide is for us to know high water level, low water level, and to realize if the water will flow in or flow out. And then when we take the chart, so when we look at the depth and obstacles in the water, we can actually think about a way how the current will move, which direction, and so on. Of course, you have to check it. I didn't go through it because we didn't have time, but you have to check it on the water by coach, and you can do it also on your own. You can check current every single moment by using your water bottle. So you are close to the race committee, you throw the water, right? You flow it, you put it in the water, and then you see which direction it's floating. If it's floating a lot, very fast, then you know that the current is strong, but it's already on the water. So before you go on the water, tides, you make a strategy. So you think about high tide, low tide, and how the current will flow. And then on the water, you confirm it with your devices and confirm it with the coach. What actually is happening?
Sure. How much of weather prediction and how much of the judging the short-term and medium-term weather and wind direction is the responsibility of the coach, and how much is it the responsibility of the sailor?
It's a very good question, and the answer is difficult because it depends on the sailor. The coach has to be prepared always. So we step aside of the coach. We don't take coach as a measure, because coach is there for you, for sailor. So if coach is not prepared, it means he's not doing his job right. If coach doesn't know what the current is, what the weather forecast is saying, and so on, blah blah blah, it means he's not actually doing his job. That's one. But how much sailor should rely on the coach? Well, if you trust your coach very much and you know that he's a pro, then you can trust him more. But still, as a sailor, you should evolve all the time, slowly, going in the way that you are great. You are great on your own. You are a very good sailor on your own, because sometimes you may approach events when your coach is not there. And what then? You will lose because you don't know what to do. So I would advise from a very small, like a kid, optimist and so on, be curious. So you like to know things. I will give you an example that a particular part of my career, I had a coach, which when I asked him about the trim, I asked, why do we do those turns? What does it change in the mast? He answered, you don't want to know, just do it. No, I think you know what I mean by that. So it's not a good coach's answer, and it's not a good approach for you, sailor. So if you want to know, make it happen. Ask, always ask, and you should be given an answer. If not by coach, then by a friend, or you want to go through, again, paper, magazines, documents, books. But you want to be better and better and better. More awareness as a sailor gives you that advantage against other rivals, opponents in the regatta. And I will give you another example, short one. When we went to Auckland in 2019 with our 49er sailors, we had 8 courses, eight courses, and I had 5 boats. 5 boats, 8 courses. I was alone. So I'm just giving an example that even if the coach is there on the regatta, sometimes it may happen that sailors will not see him, because I was on 1 course, maybe on 2, but our teammates, your friends, were on the 4th. So I was not able to reach there. So then they are on their own. So again, more aware they are, more they know, it's better for them. It's their advantage.
Thanks, Tom. Great session as always. And for those of you who are listening in, I think the next session is going to be by our measurer Ajit Das on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. It's going to be largely about measurements, the impact of measurements. He's going to make it very anecdotal. So he's going to tell you what to look out for and what works, what doesn't work. And then on the next Sunday, we don't have a session on Thursday. Next Sunday at 10 o'clock, same time as this session, you'll have a very important session on food, nutrition, and supplements. So it's, the body is very, very important. Your physical fitness is very important, but what you eat is very critical. So that's going to happen next Sunday. Thanks very much for everybody. Please respond to the poll, and just keep one thing in mind, that next time onwards, we will be shutting the meeting at 10 o'clock or maximum at 10:05 onwards. So please try to come in much earlier than 10 into the waiting room, and then we let you in. Thanks very much again. And I've just launched the poll. So you can please just respond to the poll. The poll will be on for about 3-4 minutes. Thanks. Thanks, Tom. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you on Tuesday. Stay safe and healthy. If you have any questions, if you have any unsaid doubts at the moment, I'm there. You can take my number, you can write me or call me or whatever you want. I'm open and always will try to answer your questions. So don't feel bad about it. Be open. I'm here for you. Okay?
Become a member of the WhatsApp group where you can ask your questions there. Tom is going to be on the WhatsApp group, so your questions, and it could become a discussion forum.
Yes, please make a WhatsApp group if you want. Put me in it, and I will be gladly answering any questions if you have any. Okay? Thank you. Bye bye.